Kia koutou, no mai ora mai. Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to our annual budget hearings for Thursday, the 23rd of April, 2026. And also a warm welcome to those in the gallery and those also following us online. Before we start our meeting, we'll just open up with a karakia. Tutau mai runga, tutau mai roto, raro, tutau mai roto, tutau mai waho. Kia tau ai te moriotu, te moriora, ki te katoa humie huie tā kie. Just a bit of housekeeping and safety procedures. On hearing the alarm, please we'll leave the site immediately by the nearest exit, which will be the main door and downstairs right up to Te Marae Hine, the square. And also just of a bit of health and safety procedures as well. This building is a non-smoking and non-vaping building. And also, in an unlikely event of, of an emergency, or if a defibrillator is needed, it's just located outside the entrance to the customer service on the ground floor. Also, please report any near misses or incidents to council or committee administrators. We'll move on to the apologies for today. We have Councillor Findlay for late arrival, and Councillor Billy Mahan and Bonnie Kuru and William Wood as apologies for this session. And I'm happy to move it. We'll look for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Habiter. And we'll vote. We've got a question for...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just before we vote, I will be in and out of the chamber just for... on council business with a Zoom call I need to take with other mayors, but I'll not about half an hour. Thank you.
Sure. So we'll allow administrators to just put it up. Great. So I'll just repeat for the benefit of those online that the council, we will receive apologies for Councillor Findlay for late arrival, and Billy Mahan, Councillor Bonnie Kuru, William Hood for as apologies for this session, and the Mayor for early departure, and we'll vote. And that's passed unanimously. Cool. Also, to our submitters, I'll refer you to the procedure sheet that you would have received or seen. And also, I'll call upon each and every one of you, or each and every one speakers, submitters to speak to the microphone. We'll keep a strict time. Your time is 10 minutes. And I would encourage you to leave a bit of time for councillors to ask you questions. All your submissions have been read, and I would encourage you to keep it brief, and if you wish to allow councillors to ask for any questions regarding your submission, I would encourage you to also allow that time. So you all have 10 minutes. And moving on to the next item, We have a number of submitters who have come here today and some who could not make it today, and so the orders change a little bit. So we do have eight submissions to consider today, or for this session, sorry. And our first submitter comes from Julia Manson. That's submission 209, colleagues. Julia, you may use the microphone in front of you, and the right-hand button should light up once you press it. And when it's red, it means you can speak. Over to you.
Look at that. Mr. Mayor, before I start, I'd just like to say I'm not the only one that interrupts you when you're speaking and the phone rings. Right. Okay, good morning, everybody. Page 15, rates increase proposed for this year is 4.9%. Let's break the spending down. Essential expenses, water, wastewater, roading and rubbish. Areas of huge losses that need immediate attention. Central Energy Trust Arena, $7.2 million yearly loss. Te Manawa, $5.7 million loss. Libraries, $13.1 million expenditure. Housing, $2 million loss. Non-essential expenses, international relations, $527,000. Climate change, $958,000. Governance and active citizenship, just for one, I've got really no budget on that, but it's at $3.34 cost to us, the ratepayers. Extravagant spending. Councillor and entourage of 2 on a trip to Taipei for a Smart Cities conference. Massey University, artificial turf, cost $436,000. And I also understand that there is an expense of $41,000 for a garden that they did up at Massey as well. Debt, $290 million. Council plans to increase that to $386.5 million by the end of this year's budget. Cost of the interest on the loans, well, who knows? Planned expenditure, upgrade and planned upgrade on Arena, $26 million, and redevelopment, $17.1 million. I thought there was a bit of a red herring in that budget as well for footpaths. If money was spent on the footpaths instead of the cycle lanes, we wouldn't have our footpath issues. Significant issues. Recreation and play, $9.65 per week to the ratepayer, $7.2 million yearly loss. This area needs to be significantly reduced. Cost of ratepayers for partnership with Rangatani. Not only do we get to have 2 Maori seats on the council to represent and work for Māori, we now have to have a partnership. With who? And at what cost to the ratepayers? This council has given away our water rights as ratepayers at vast cost, and this needs to be urgently addressed. Between the 6 Board of Trustee members, of which I question as to why we need 6 of them, representatives from the 3 councils of Palmerston North, Rangatiki and Horowhenua, and to top all this off, we still need more representatives from Ngā Tapu Wai Oho. And all these people are to be paid by the good old ratepayer. Please explain to me maybe, and I'll go to the next page, in simple language, why so many on a board for water when we never had this before? I might be naive, however, this number of representatives from where I am standing is way over the top. This cannot be allowed. It is criminal. As sure as God made little green apples, our water alone is going to come back and bite us all. Rates of $70 per week, that's on page 20. Average household income, according to Palmerston North City Council, the average household income is $125,498 per year. Wasn't like that on my planet. Average super for a couple, and that's me, $43,074 per year. We forgot to mention in that booklet about the expenses. I just wrote a few down. PAYE tax comes out of that, as does GST at 15%. Then you pay your mortgage, your weekly rent, which is around about $650 a week, food, electricity, gas, petrol, insurance, and lo and behold, weekly rates of $70 a week. 23 and 24 rates increased by 6-point-something%. Then in 24-25, we were rated on the value of our land and our homes, called this capital value rates. Total lack of financial honesty, transparency, and reckless spending of our money needs to stop. What you are doing amounts to theft and fraud. Continual rates increases is breaking the people and the businesses in our city. That's our city. Instead of always thinking about taking more rates from the people, why not think about cutting unnecessary spending until we can actually afford it? And that good old common saying, rate and spend, rate and spend. Palmerston North will end up just like our country, broken, no money to even pay the interest on the loans that you have taken out or intend to take out. This is a really tough time financially, and there is no real need for our rates to be increased at all. Look closely at what you are spending our money on and give a little bit of credibility and honesty back to your people with a 0% rate increase. An old English saying attributed to William Loud's 1652 to 1724, and it is still very, very applicable today. Look after the pennies, and the pounds will look after themselves. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Julia, for your submission. We do have a question from Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Julia. On page 6 of your submission, you've made the suggestion that council is dishonest and can't be truthful about the money that we spend. I'd just be interested to understand why you've come to that view, and if there is an area that you want to know more information about, what is that area?
I heard that there was a department in that in our council. Some time ago, we only had one person running it. Now we have about 12 or 13 in it. Nobody knows about that. Nobody knows the department that has been increased to that number. There's a lot of things that the ratepayers don't get told about. I talk to my neighbours out at Linton, and they go, we never heard about that. We didn't know about that. And then I go and pick up the book that says Proudly Palmy. Nothing like that in those booklets either.
Thank you. Do you know what department you're referring to?
Actually, I can't bloody remember. Ooh,
Okay.
I can't jolly remember.
Okay, thanks.
But I will question that person that I got the information off later.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Julia. You've given us a list of figures there for different activities of council that you've characterised as losses. Where did you get those figures from?
I will speak to the person that I got that information from first.
Okay. What do you think is the difference between paying for a public service and characterising something as a loss?
Say again to me, please.
So you've described paying, let's take Te Manawa as an example. You've described the money that we put into Te Manawa each year as a loss. Why are you describing it as a loss?
If it's a loss, then it's a loss. And if you can prove to me that it's not a loss, then I'll withdraw that comment. But it is a loss.
So,
In other words, the expenditure is over the income that is received for it.
okay. So wouldn't that be the same for anything that we paid for?
Probably.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Julia, for your submission. This will be taken into consideration along with other submissions that we've received in our deliberations that's scheduled to take place on May the 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, everybody.
Next submission is Te Manawa Art Society, David Crowley. David, you've got 10 minutes. Your submissions, I just want to remind submitters that your submissions have been read and encourage you to leave a bit of time for councillors should they wish to ask any questions. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Chair, Morena, Mayor, other councillors.
Sorry, David, just sorry to interrupt. You're free to sit down as well if you wanted to as well.
Thanks all for your stand. Appreciate it. My name is David Crowley. My family and I are local business owners. We've lived in this community, in the Manawatu, Palmerston North, all of our lives. And I'm here today to represent the Te Manawa Art Society. I'm certainly not here as an expert. Stick figures go by my name as far as doing art, but I'm here as someone who really cares about our community, its future, and how we make good decisions with the asset we already have. The Te Manawa Art Society has been part of our region for many decades. We exist to support the fine arts and to care for the collection. This collection belongs to the people of this region. Many of these works have come from local artists through gifting and purchasing, and our collection is valued over $15 million. We couple this with the Palmerston North collection, and that is another 15 million. There's around about 30 million which is up for valuation at the moment. This is a considerable asset. Regardless if you like the fine arts, if you have no ability to draw, or you can, the reality is we all start there. But we have a collection that really belongs in our community, and there is so much of our community that really connects with it. And I'd be very surprised if you all had some piece in there that you could really resonate with you. What I want to speak today is simple. There's an opportunity in front of us that we are not fully taking advantage of. I've got 3 points. We'll move through them pretty quickly, and then we'll run into questions, no doubt. Firstly, unlock the collection's potential for tourism. We already have one of the most significant collections in the country, 2 doors down, but much of it sits unseen. Not because of lack of care or capability, but because of the resource constraints. Other regions have shown what's possible. Look at the Len Lai, look at the Sargent Art Gallery. They've really created from what's a really strong culture asset to something that's a real destination now for New Zealanders and for international people as well. They just don't display art, they tell the story, they draw people in, they come off the main highways. They stay and they bring money and they bring jobs into our community. Don't get me wrong, Palmerston North does a great job with our sports, our cultural events, but these are seasonal. If we want people to stay longer, spend more, and experience the city differences, we need depth in our offering. Around the world, they do that by arts and culture. There's no need to start from scratch. As I said, it's already sitting there 2 doors down. It's about unlocking the value we already own. Secondly, build a place where our grandchildren can come back to. A lot of our young people, they migrate, but they want them to come home. A strong arts and culture offers contributes to a culture, identity, education and belonging. It gives young people reasons to stay and connect to a place to come back to. This is about how we feel and how we live. We talk a lot about growing our region. Part of that is economic, but it's also about creating a place people are proud of, a place of depth, creativity and opportunity. Investing in the gallery is an opportunity in the future. It helps shape a kind of city that we can hand with pride to our next generation. Thirdly, the door is opening for future gifts to collections. Our region has produced highly successful artists over generations. Many of them have gifted work back to the gallery because they feel supported, they're connected, they belong. We are entering into a period across New Zealand where New Zealanders and expats overseas are beginning to gift entire collections back into their communities. You don't need to do much of a Google search to see that happening at the moment. Where do these collections go will depend on where they feel they're valued, seen and cared for. This doesn't happen by accident. It requires you to think about and offer support to the arts and are willing to invest. If the collection remains relatively unseen, that pipeline will slow. So the decision in front of you is not just about funding today, it's about whether to continue to build the asset as a cornerstone of our culture precinct for the generations to follow us. Here is my summary. We have a choice to make. We maintain what we have, or do we invest something for our generations that we're proud of? We support the need for financial discipline, as you heard from the previous submission. That's a given. That should be always in front of you. That matters. But this is a value decision about the future. This is about looking longer. This is 10, 20 years out, and even looking into our grandchildren's futures. You already have access to one of New Zealand's best art collections, supported by a group of really talented people. I don't stand here with my hand out. I just encourage you to be curious. Meet Susanna, meet the team at Te Manawa, get them behind the doors and see and identify, and this collection belongs. Get curious and start considering what it actually could mean to this community here. As governors, there's a simple idea. You plant trees you may never sit under. This is one of those directions I hope you consider. I welcome questions. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Our first question is coming from Councillor Habiter.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Dave. Really nice to hear someone come and not want to ask for money, so thanks for that. But my question's around, one is donors that want to donate artwork. How many times, how much do you think's out there that people want to actually donate in terms of art going forward?
Well, there's two parts to that, Leonie. There is a really active community here that donate all the time, every year, as far as cash goes. There are a number of artists, of local artists, that contribute all the time. You've got the likes of Tom Armstrong, who had a recent exhibition. He has donated one piece of significance. He would like to donate another two. I think what the council need to get curious about is have a look at how fit for purpose that building is.
Well, that was my next question. So talking about the art gallery, but also where else do you think we should be putting art in Palmerston North? If we can't fit it all into the art gallery, where else should we put it? What's your ideas about where else we should be putting it?
I don't think it should go anywhere else. I think that art gallery there has got some really significant architectural advantages. It's a point of difference.
Is it big enough?
Yes, it is, but it's going to need money spent on it. And that's where you need to really consider what your 10-year plan is with that building. You've got maintenance work to do. If you've got a house that leaks, you fix the roof. That building can be so much more. You've got all the bones there. The capital expenditure on there is not significant. You don't have to go to any structural content. Expanding the art room would be something I'd be looking at pretty early on. But also the ability to also making sure it's fit for purpose so that we can get really Class A exhibitions through there. I don't know the details of those, but I'm sure Susanna can provide those.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr Chair.
Dave, just got a question as well for you. I note from your submission that you understand the financial and economic difficulties a lot of councils are facing at the moment, and some have been making cuts in the arts. I just want to get from your perspective, what role do you see the council sort of playing in that area, given that, you know, we've seen a trend of councils sort of removing themselves or making cuts in that area?
I don't know, Orphy, if I'm really qualified to challenge on the budget. My submission is certainly more a bigger look, bigger plan. But I think if you want more there, I think you need to resource it better. The art gallery needs actually more time to do creation. The second part of it is that there's going to be capital expenditure to put in play. I'm not sure if that's answered your questions, but I don't know exactly those numbers that you're talking about.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Thanks, Dave, for coming in. You talked in your submission about the quality of the collection. You said it's one of New Zealand's best art collections. Is that hyperbole?
No, absolute fact.
Can you explain to us how it's one of New Zealand's best art collections and how people don't know that?
I think it's, if you look at the value of the work, that's an easier starting point. You know, the combined combination of the two collections is around about $30 million. It's up for review at the moment. But it's not only just about the value, it's actually about the significance of the artworks that is in there. You've got, I can't pronounce it, but you've got one artwork there that's over $1 million worth in value. It travels the world. It is certainly renowned as regionally as one of the best. Does it stand up against Te Manawa? I believe so. Sorry, as a Te Papa.
Oh.
Yeah, it's right up there as one of the best.
And you talk about unlocking tourism potential by making that more visible. What would that look like, do you think?
It's just getting the turnover, and it needs resourcing. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Mr Chair.
Oh, thank you, David. That brings us to all the questions. Thank you for your submission, and your submission will be considered alongside the many other submissions that we've received, and will be taken into consideration for our deliberation on May the 6th. Thank you for your submission.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, councillors.
Alrighty, we'll move on to the next submitter, who we have the Palmerston North City Council Heritage Reference Group. We have Margaret Tenant and Peter Tarangi here to present. Yes, Margaret, you may come to the front. You have 10 minutes. I'll encourage you to also allow time for councillors to ask questions with relevant to your submission.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity to submit. We're going to jointly submit. And I must say much of our presentation does resonate with the one which preceded us in terms of the general picture and the points being made. I'm going to start by just responding to some of the specifics in this year's budget, and Peter's going to address perhaps the broader context, because the word deferral is mentioned quite a lot in the budget, which is, I think, the elephant in the room for history and heritage. First of all, we want to acknowledge the efforts that the Council's made to keep the total rates increased to 4.9%. I think that's a job well done, but obviously it's been done in a very difficult context of other demands on expenditure. So thank you for at least allowing some additional increase. Not as much as we would have liked, but, you know, that's how it is. We're firmly opposed to any lesser increase, should that be on anyone's mind, because we would believe it would be at the expense of the city goals around creative and exciting city and a connected and safe community, because we think these are goals that attract people to Palmerston North, increase its ratepayer base, increase the opportunity to attract visitors as well. So I think our submission's a realistic, though, resigned one, perhaps, rather than one that is excited about the budget. We're strongly in favour of continued spending on arts and heritage with the aim of future increases in appropriate areas, and that's where, as I said, the word deferral is there quite a lot. We particularly support expenditure on the City Library, which for us is at the core of heritage activities, and we saw that in the recent Heritage Festival, which was highly successful, and I had people from well beyond this community saying, oh, I came up for such and such, or I wish I'd seen the program sooner, or because I would have come up and stayed overnight or whatever. So a heritage festival can attract outsiders, and the library did an excellent job of that. We're pleased that amounts allocated to the earthquake-prone Heritage Building Fund, the Natural and Cultural Heritage Incentive Fund, at least appear to have remained much the same. So they're relatively small parts of the budget, but they're essential. We hope that the funding previously allocated for the seismic strengthening of council properties will be reinstated once the current legislative reset is better understood, and this extends to maintenance, which should not be deferred. I mean, the problem, I think, with this, the issue around earthquake strengthening and the government shifting the goals a bit, is that all it's doing is giving property owners, including, I guess, the council, an opportunity to defer things that are going to need addressing. It's going to happen at some point, and whether it's done gradually or just constantly deferred, buildings are not getting any stronger or more successful as buildings with this ongoing deferral. And we're disappointed to see some of the new capital developments relating to the library and arts and heritage on hold, and hope that they're revisited in the near future. And I'll pass over to Peter to talk about some of the things that came up in a meeting of a whole range of heritage groups. We have these regularly. It's not just our reference group that exists. There are others which meet together to discuss many of these issues. So I'll hand over to Peter to talk about this our longer term hopes and aspirations for heritage.
Thank you, Margaret. Oh. Kia ora, Margaret, and kia ora koutou. Yes, you would have seen in one of our earlier submissions to council the network of associations that we have, not just from the members of the Heritage Reference Group, is wide and it's quite expansive. It's and quite inclusive as well. And so we see that in terms of heritage and the stewardship responsibility that the council has for the environment, and not just talking about physical environment, but cultural environment as well, fits into sort of values of identity and belonging, social cohesion and resilience, economic impact, and we've addressed that already, urban regeneration, and also to do with educational opportunities. And so, and I know that we live in times of fiscal restraint, but it's important that we are mindful of the cultural and environmental stewardship that we need and have for this, our community. So, and I'm thinking of, there are other key cities throughout the world that are renowned for their heritage preservation. If we think of Kyoto in Japan, where they have preserved their centuries-old temples, which attract tourism from all over the world. In Rome and Italy, something like 25,000 environmental, architectural and archaeological points of interest there. Beijing in China, their significant sites, their Forbidden City, etc. Malacca, in Malaysia, well-preserved colonial buildings and of unique historical and architectural significance. And we have those places here in Palmerston North, and the opportunity to develop these cultural sites even more. So, and I'm thinking particularly of Te Motu o Poutua, Palmerston North has a unique bicultural heritage celebrated by both Māori and non-Māori in the community. I'm thinking about the naming of the Te Marae o Hine, which has a very rich and collaborative history to it, which sets a tone for the whole community. And also for the Te Motu o Poutua site, celebrates the military history also of this community. And when you think of things like identity and belonging, you think of synonyms like inclusion, attachment, kinship, affinity, and the likes. So, thank you.
Thank you, Margaret and Peter. We do have one question from you from Councillor Naylor.
Thank you for your submission. You explained, Margaret, that you weren't keen on a lower increase of rates than 4.9 because you believed that that would compromise goals 2 and 3. I'm just interested to understand how you've come to that view and whether you would be open to any reductions in goals 1 and 4 if given a lot of the feedback from the community is that they're struggling with the impact of rates increases. Would you be open to it being a smaller rates increase if there were goals 1 or 4?
You have to remind me what they are.
So goal 1 is innovative and growing city, and goal 4 is sustainable and resilient city. But also really interested to know why you've come to that view that you believe if we were to reduce it, that it would target goals 2 and 3.
I didn't think those 2 goals are specifically being targeted. And in fact, I'd be very sorry to see, sustainability and such like also compromised. I just I felt that many of the valuable city goals are going to be compromised should the rates increase be any less. And I was focusing on 2 and 3 because they seemed the most relevant to the topic we were presenting on, really.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I think that's all the questions. Yeah. Thank you, Margaret and Peter, for your submission, which will also be considered along with other submissions sent to us or through this annual budget consultation process, and will be considered for a deliberation on May the 6th. And our next submission or submitter is Cam Jenkins and Kirsty Henderson. I'm advised that Cam will be making all 3 submissions at once, and will be willing to take questions from elected members. And I'll remind colleagues, that those are submissions 185 and 331 and 355. Submissions 185, 331, 355. Thank you.
Fantastic. Unionist now has the microphone. Haha. Good morning and thank you for the opportunity to speak. You all know I am Cameron Jenkins. I'm speaking in capacity today as my personal capacity, coordinator of the Tenants Union and Treasurer and Secretary for Malgra. I have here with me Kirsty Henderson, who is the new Malgra Rainbow Community Outreach Officer. Palmerston North is already doing many of the right things. The issue is not direction, the issue is scale, and the current level of investment does not match the level of need. Housing, community service and infrastructure are not separate issues, they are one system. When the system is underfunded, the impact shows up across the entire city. We see increased housing instability, growing pressures on community services, reduced access to transport and essential services, and declining well-being and financial and social pressures compounded. This is reflected in our data with rising tenancy terminations, increased rent affordability issues, and a significant lift in interagency referrals. At the same time, we are not seeing those pressures ease when costs such as rates are constrained. rent levels continue to move independently, which reinforces that reducing rates does not translate to reduced rents, but it does reduce council's ability to respond to those pressures. From the Tenants Union frontline data, the trend is clear. Engagement has increased year on year and is continuing to rise in 2026. We are seeing a 22% increase in rent affordability issues, a 19% increase in tenancy terminations, which most of them relate to rent-related issues, being rent arrears. 26% increase in tenancy tribunal matters that come from those, and a 44% increase in interagency referrals. So those are other organisations in the city that are directly referring clients to us that I don't normally see. At the same time, the funding has not kept pace and the service capacity is reaching its limits. This tells us one thing very clearly: housing stress in the city is increasing and not stabilising. We're also seeing a growing number of older renters paying more than half of their income just to remain housed. This is not sustainable, and you can certainly tell that by the waiting list that not only council operates under, but also other providers. There are three key points I want to be very clear about. First, limiting rates does not protect tenants. Rent increases are not driven by rates, they are driven by what the market will tolerate. Reducing rates reduces council ability to invest, but does not reduce rents. Second, council housing is not just a social support, it is a critical infrastructure. It provides stability, set benchmarks, and gives councils direct influence in a market that is otherwise not delivering. Third, community funding is not optional. It is a preventative infrastructure. It reduces demand on higher cost systems such as health, emergency housing, and other critical services. Cutting or holding this funding flat does not save money, it shifts the costs elsewhere. From Malgra's perspective, it is very clear, I want to be very clear on one point. We chose not to submit a funding request this year. This is not because it is not needed, it reflects the current funding environment. At the same time, we are seeking ongoing demand for safe, affirming support and a clear imbalance in how funding is distributed across communities. We are not asking for less support for others, we are asking for funding decisions that reflect the full range and need of the city. Finally, on infrastructure, a 16-year backlog on footpath is not a maintenance issue, it's a barrier to participation and also a huge failing of how we have not done stuff properly in our city. The fact remains is 16 years to fix the footpaths, that's going to ever be expanding as we continue to add more footpaths with growth. My issue with picking which option to have in terms of rates increase for footpath comes one concerning, because I'm very concerned that if we increase the rates budget for footpaths, are we actually going to be able to deliver more footpaths, or are we just going to be adding the same amount of footpaths just at a higher cost because there's more money? Food for thought. Can we actually deliver more footpaths? Do we need more contractors on board to do it? Accessibility, transport and public infrastructures determine whether people can work, access services and remain connected. If we want a livable and inclusive facility, this cannot be deferred. In conclusion, I want to finish with something I came across recently. I went to a community event at the Luck venue, and there was a statement on their wall, you're probably all aware of it if you've been there, and I've just replaced the word luck with community, just so you can understand the context. Community provides a place where people have a sense of belonging, a sense of connection with others, and a sense of hope, a sense of acceptance, a place where people feel cared about, where experiences build on existing strengths and abilities, while nurturing self-esteem, a community within the wider community, a place where people are people. This is what we're talking about here. These outcomes do not happen by accident. They are supported through stable housing, accessible service, and properly funded community organisations. If we want the kind of city and community that Palmerston North is, it requires deliberate investment. Without it, these outcomes do not sustain themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Cam. We have questions for you.
Excellent. That's why I allowed plenty of time.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Cameron and Kirsty. Just focusing on Malgra for a minute, what is the current unmet need? Because in your submission you've said that that although you have made the decision not to ask for more funding in the annual budget process, that it shouldn't be interpreted as a lack of need. So can you give us an idea of what you think the area of need is from Malgra's perspective?
I think it's our current need. What I've just probably not been clear on communicating that is that I chose not to ask for money, given the fact that we're also saying we want to reduce the amount of rates increases. So it's kind of that I'm not asking for more money, but our need is still there.
Yeah, yes, I understood that. I wondered if you could tell us a bit more about what you see as the needs. Like, if you had more money, the implication in your submission is that there is need that's not being addressed. Okay. And I'm trying to inquire what that is and how we might know more about it.
I mean, just so effectively, our community have been constantly under attack. I only need to, address one of the bills in Parliament that have come up about, the government wanting to specifically identify and mandate someone's gender, which inherently affects our community a lot. We're seeing a lot more rainbow members who are experiencing needs around neurodiversity and inclusion. So it's not necessarily, it's kind of hard to explain sometimes, but we are seeing a huge growth in, say, for example, our youth group that we co-partner with Youthline on. We're seeing that grow from 5 to 10 youth coming to now 30, potentially come every week from all across the schools across Palmerston North. So that kind of indicates that there is actually a constant growing need within the younger community. I'm probably not necessarily, and the seniors is a very clear one. I've certainly done a lot of work with Lou Finlay in the age community, Grey Power movement. Obviously, I'm not necessarily as youthful as I once was, so therefore I'm not necessarily connected with the younger generation as I once was. But yeah, the need is very much still there.
Okay, and I wondered if, Kirsty, could you tell us a bit about your role, or I know you're only quite new in it, but it'd be interesting to hear what you're anticipating doing, or what you have been doing.
Yep, sure thing, so Councillor Johnson. So I've been employed, as Cam says, as the outreach coordinator for Malgra, which basically my job description is trying to expand and improve the safe space program to get a few more businesses in town involved with it, to give us a safer space and more inclusion and acceptance and awareness, as well as looking at setting up support groups for us older Rainbow community members, because there is that huge demand from the young side, but I've also been speaking to a number of my age people who feel like there's just nowhere to go, no safe space. So yeah, to try and create something like that over the next little while.
Okay, that's very helpful, thank you. I see there's other people in the queue, so I'll let them have some questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Boyne.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Cam and Kirsty, for coming in today. Cam, I wanted to tease out with you maybe a bit of the tension I read across your submissions. You work with quite vulnerable communities, and some of that is financial vulnerability as well. And you'll know there's a conversation we're having about it, the level of the rates increase and the impact of that. But your submissions seem to take a different tack on that, to say that that reducing rates reduces council's ability, and it doesn't flow through to a greater affordability for some of our most vulnerable community, which is renters, I think you were talking about in that capacity. So can you say more about why you seem to be I don't think anybody's ever happy with rates increases, but content with the proposal in front of us when the communities that you work most closely with are most vulnerable to those kind of price increases?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think the number you got to is a sweet spot for me in terms of we need to have an increase in order to keep up with things, because the reality of it is the people I see who are most vulnerable are needing to use things like the library, the museum, during the weekends, the weekday when the weather has been really bad. Those vulnerable people who potentially may be sleeping rough or on a couch or in their car will go to the library so that they've got somewhere warm, dry and safe. So the reality of it is, if we have a reduction of service, those people are at risk that those services they rely on cannot be delivered. So we need to ensure we have a substantial rate increase to ensure we can continue to deliver services. What I find very interesting on that is that if we increase rates for whatever percentage it is, and that it creates a $3.50 a week rate increase, then why is it that tenants are getting a $35 a week rent increase with landlords using the excuse of rates have gone up? The two don't correlate. So the more we have vulnerable people needing housing, the more pressure is going to be on who is providing it. Because we all accept that the mayor doesn't want to get people ringing him about homeless people living in the street, but if we're not doing anything to house them, I appreciate that it doesn't necessarily fall on the city, shouldn't fall on the city council to do something, but we only have private investors, public being council and public being government, national government, as a national government. So yeah, I'm saying we need to have an increase. I am a unionist. I believe that all of the staff the council employ need a cost of living increase in wages, but that means we have to increase costs, which comes by a slight rate increase, so we can have manageable and fair rate increases that are reasonable to ensure services continue and that the council can respond to need as need arises during the year.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. That's interesting. And just if I could follow up on just a point you made, Kirsty, when you were speaking, which is about your role in working with safe spaces.
Yep.
What are the safe spaces in the city? What does that mean for our rainbow community?
Apologies,
Mayor just set
guys.
the alarm
We're
off.
going to have to evacuate and leave the
Apologies.
building. Or use the back door and the side door. Alrighty. All right, we're back. We have a quorum, right? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, okay, so we'll come back. I'm beginning to think that these alarms don't like me. Every time I've chaired this meeting, there's always an alarm on the day. So, Councillor, what we'll do is that I will. It's my fault. So what we'll do is that Councillor Bowen will still ask some questions, and I'll just allow one more question after this, just so we can catch up with the time, or the remaining time that we have. Thank you. Councillor Bowen.
The button. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very quickly, thank you for bearing with us through all of that. But Kirsty, I was asking, in your experience, what are the safe places that currently exist, recognising that you're working to expand that network? Where are the safe places for our rainbow community in the city?
Yeah, basically most of all the city council buildings and premises are, and there's also quite a few businesses and community agencies around that do support the program and give us somewhere where we can go and be ourselves basically, and if there's any victimisation or bullying or anything, they'll also ring the police and keep us safe until such time as they turn up.
Councillor Zavalin.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Morena Korua. I had a question, just picking up from Councillor Johnson's question about your decision not to seek funding. And you've noted in your submission that's a pragmatic response to the funding environment, but also the signals provided through last year's process. And then you've also sort of talked about the comparative imbalance and who gets funded and who doesn't, which is not just about the amount of funding in the pot, but the principles by which it's distributed. So wanted to get your thoughts on whether our settings are off.
In regards to the settings, I'd probably say potentially not, but I have a lot of this work in preparing the submission was also drawn on from work that I have done with consulting with the team around the community funding policy changes. So if that makes more context,
Okay.
the reference there.
Right. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. That's all the questions for today, Cam. Thank you for your submission.
Can I just want to answer I appreciate we had an emergency and there was still time on the clock, but I just want to address one of the points that was raised yesterday in someone else's submission around the CPI measure and that council isn't operating under traditional CPI due to the nature of what the things that the council are buying. The confusion also comes as well is because while you sit there and say that council are not obligated by CPI due to the nature of what they do, you as a council also levy our rent that community organisations pay based on CPI. So you're also using CPI as a measure to increase costs that we pay for. So it becomes really hard to sit there and allow the mayor to go, well, we're buying bridges, so that's not CPI, but then you're increasing my rent at CPI. So how do we have a consistent measure?
No, thank you for that. And your submissions will be considered alongside the other submission that we received, the deliberations on May the 6th. So thank you for coming in today and presenting.
Thank you. You can have 15 minutes back.
Our next submitter is Kiatua Rugby Football Club, Inc., Ray Sweddle, who's doing a presentation. Ray, you have 10 minutes to speak, and I encourage you to leave at least some time for elected members to ask any questions related to your presentation or submission today. Thank you. Over to you.
If you push this button, it will move your slides.
Good morning, Chair and councillors. I represent the Kiatoa Rugby Club as their project manager for the club rooms development at Bill Brown Park. The club is very appreciative of council granting the land lease for the project back in June 2025. Since then, our architect has taken the concept design through to a developed design for inclusion in our resource consent application. And this image before you is one of the club room's front entranceways. We're expecting the consent to be granted any day now, allowing us to proceed with preparation of construction drawings and specifications from which to seek tenders from select local building contractors. The aim is still to have the club rooms operational by the start of the 2027 rugby season, Kiatoa's 125th anniversary year. Throughout the planning process, Kiatoa and its consultants have been liaising with council staff in a number of aspects, including the integration of the club rooms site spaces, that's the paved artere courtyard and garden areas, with council's additional car park area proposed under program 1560 in the long-term plan. The next slide here shows a landscape master plan for both the existing and additional car park areas for which council is responsible, and the club rooms site bounded by the bold red dotted line, falling under obviously the club's responsibility. As noted in our written submission, it's clear that these works need to be coordinated by both parties in regard to undertaking the physical works, and therefore timing is critical. This is particularly so for the club rooms underground utility services, where the trench alignment is beneath the additional car park pavement shown in that slide. Accordingly, Kiatoa is pleased to note that program 1560 has been brought forward 1 year from that indicated in the long-term plan. Its inclusion in the 2026-27 annual budget is strongly supported by the club. An issue has arisen with the location of the new Papua Pacifica Community Centre currently under construction, encroaching onto part of the lit training area used by Kiatoa. This has prompted a review of the sports field grounds layout by parks, at the park by council officers and the club in consultation with other affected parties such as Manawatu Rugby Union and Sport Manawatu. So I can show you a slide here. It's a little bit detailed, but this shows the existing rugby fields in the training area prior to the community centre's construction. So I just wanted to highlight a few points there. The area marked T is the training area, and you've got three rugby fields, number 1, 2 and 3. So we're proposing that the junior fields will be located out to the right there, and surround in an L shape around the proposed club rooms. And so we need to really move the training field. The Pacifica Centre is at the top of that T area. It's encroaching. There's a little bit of a slope part and shape of the training area. So it needs to be brought south and brought to cover up part of the number 2 field. And so we want to see a relocation of the 2 and 3 fields over towards the east. To the west. That's to the right of the slide there. And also I've marked a couple of poor drainage soft spots that have been in the field for some time. So as I say, to achieve that new layout where our training needs are met, it's important that those poor draining spots are addressed. Council officers advised that this can be done under program 1851, which is titled Sports Field Improvements. Accordingly, the club strongly supports that program, its inclusion in the 2026-27 annual budget. And then finally, a slide that gives a view of the club rooms from those junior fields, which we think will be an asset valued by not only the club but the wider community. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that councils may have.
Thank you, Ray. We do have a question for you from Councillor Harpeter.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ray. Just a question, I'm just trying to clarify what you're actually asking for. Are you asking for funds to fund the club rooms?
No, we're not. We made that quite clear when we made our land lease application. No, the purpose of our submission here is just to strongly endorse those two programs, inclusion in the 10-year plan. We're happy with that, particularly the additional car park one. If that was to stay as it's signalled another year away in the long-term plan, that would have serious implications on our program to build the club rooms.
Yep,
But we're not asking for any funds.
That's great, just wanted to make sure that was crystal clear with everybody. And the second one is the reason for the extra car parking is because there is going to be more capacity, and that's the why you want extra car parking.
I think, as I understand, its inclusion in the program is there is existing car park issues at the park, peak there, and obviously we argue in our resource consent that we're not changing that parking demand, a traffic demand, because that's our home ground. It's just that our people stay a little bit longer there. But I think also with the Pacifica Centre, the car park was justified in that space as well.
Great, yep, no, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you, Ray, for your submission. And this will also be considered along all the other submissions that we received, and will be considered for deliberation on May the 6th when we meet again to deliberate all the submissions. Thank you. Great. Our next submitter is Dave Chappell. Colleagues, this is submission 352. Dave, you have 10 minutes to speak, and as with other submitters, I encourage you to leave some time to elected members to ask any questions in relation to your submission. Over to you.
Good morning, everybody. I am a member of the River Stop group in Awapuni, and during Heritage Month we held a very popular afternoon based around the history of Awapuni Lagoon. Boho Cafe generously sponsored the afternoon, but the numbers, well in excess of 100, were really too great for the space, and it brought home the lack of a suitable local space for such events. Although the Awapuni Library staff were very supportive, there was no way that it could be held in the library. So my submission to the annual plan process was to query if there was allowance for progress to be made with the planning for the new Awapuni Library and Community Hub. I could find reference to other capital projects, but not the library. So after the unfortunate start to the project in 2023, I am keen that there should be adequate allowance for the planning and community consultation to progress, so that there is a much more realistic proposal can be looked forward to. I'm hopeful you can confirm that this is the case. If not, I strongly suggest that to maintain momentum, there must be some allowance in this financial year for this project. Thank you. Deathly silence.
I'm just checking the room to see if there are any questions. We do have a question for you, Dave, from Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, David. Just, I'm sure officers will be able to help us respond to your query in time, but just in terms of the hearing here and listening to your concerns, could you spell out for us what the specific concerns would be around loss of momentum as you described it, I think, in terms of the overall project, what that would mean for the community, what that might mean for the actual realization of the project?
Well, I think there was a heightened expectation a couple of years ago when the project was launched and the land purchased, and nothing has been heard since. So really it's lack of information, I guess, and communication that I'd be more concerned about, but I think we need to keep it going so that it can be progressed.
Great, thank you. Mr. Chair.
Councillor Denison.
Thank you, David. Just in regards to alternate venues in the meantime, I certainly appreciate that Boho would struggle to sit 100 people, but venues like the Awapuni Community Centre, that would hold 100 people. Is that like a suitable venue if you had planning in advance that would have enough capacity with its current bookings to cater for that type of event in the meantime?
I think there are two problems there. One is the capacity to have, it's booked up fairly much with regular activities. So if you plan a one-off event, you're likely to find that it's not at a suitable time. And the other one is the sort of space it is. It's not really the sort of space that I would have used for an event like we had.
Just as a follow-up question, how often would you have that type of event? Is that something you have in every month, or was that
No,
a
we've
one-off
had this.
in itself?
No, this is an annual event.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, David. I just wanted to follow up your comments where you said that nothing had happened about the community hub. What was your understanding of Council's decision after your submission to the long-term plan, where I believe that you and others stated that the design and scope of the hub wasn't suitable? Where did you understand things had landed from that?
It wasn't suitable with the budget that was allocated.
Yeah.
Let's be clear about that. But I just expected it would progress and there would be some sort of community consultation carried out and some thoughts gathered and then some planning done on the project itself.
Right, so your understanding was it would still progress, but just in a different form?
I presume so.
Okay. I'm not allowed to comment at this point, but I might talk to you afterwards. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Dave. That concludes question time. Thank you very much for coming in today and submitting to us. And your submission will be considered along the many other submissions that we have received at our deliberations on May the 6th. Colleagues, I think this is the perfect time for a morning tea break, and we'll adjourn the meeting for our 11 a.m., our next session, which starts at 11 a.m. To our gallery, those here in the public, we have coffee and tea just outside in the foyer. Do feel free to help yourselves, and we'll be back here at 11 a.m. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Please take your seats. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Mark Arnott, and I'll be chairing this morning's hearing session through until 12:30 p.m. Today is all about hearing directly from you, the submitters, and giving you the opportunity to speak to your submissions. Just to note, this meeting is being recorded, live streamed, and will be available to watch later on YouTube. Health and safety on hearing an alarm. Hopefully we don't get that twice today. Please exit in an orderly fashion. If anybody has any problems, please raise your hand and the member of staff will attend to you swiftly. I'll start with apologies, which I have from Councillors Meehan, Wood and Kuru. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Bowen, thank you. Thank you, councillors. We'll put that to the vote. Thank you, that's unanimous. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare, please? No, we move on. Submitters, you'll find the procedure sheet on the table at the entrance to the chamber where you walked in, and it was also sent out to you ahead of today. In terms of how we run things, I'll call each speaker up in their allocated time slot. We have a full schedule, so I'll be keeping closely to time to make sure everybody has the opportunity to be heard. I'll now move that we adopt the procedure sheet. Do I have a seconder, please? Okay, already done that, thank you. Okay, each submitter has up to 10 minutes to speak, and there will be a timer on the wall to your left when you're sitting to help you keep track. If you're joining us online, you'll receive a 2-minute warning in the chat. If you'd please like to leave a little time within your 10 minutes for possible questions from councillors. Okay, we'll get underway. First up, I'd like to call Ian Staples, please. Good morning, Ian. Please press the right-hand button on your speaker console to go live, and you're good to go when you're ready.
Right, thank you, Chairman and members. I've been longing to be here for this, and I thank you that you would have read all the information I've sent in to you. I sent in a first submission just to get on the list, and then I sent a follow-up one and a memo from a fellow by the name of Porter Stansbury. So I hope you've all read those because they're all going to be important. And so I won't dwell on what I've sent in, except to say that once again the pensioners have had an Irishman's rise. And if you know what that means, it means we've got $50 more a week and everything's gone up a lot more than that. So that's what an Irishman's rise is. Now, what I want to talk to you about is diesel. Now, there's two clocks on diesel. There's the MB's clock, which is 5 days behind them putting it out, and there's the Taxpayers Union clock, which is as it runs. Now, the Stansbury note, you will notice it gave us a 40-day timeline to be no diesel available to the lesser countries of the world because of the importance of the diesel for those who think they know better. So that day runs out on, I think, the 5th or 6th of May, the 40 days. And what we've got at the moment is you can't trust the members' clock, and Taxpayers Union are fighting with them to find out why they won't let out any details of what they're doing. And it's like they're showing 50 days. The Taxpayers Union clock, as of this morning, is showing 15 days for diesel, 23 days for petrol, and 26 days for jet fuel. So at the moment we have a number of days before the 5th and 6th of May, and that means there's a chance of no more diesel arriving in New Zealand for some time, even though they put those extra tanks at Palmerston Point. It takes 17 days, and I'm going to have a lot of numbers here, so be careful and listen. 17 days for a ship to come out of Singapore to get to Marsden Point, and then it takes time to be distributed. And were you probably aware that at one stage Gisborne, couple of weeks back, had run out of diesel and fuel? So it's not going to be unusual, and the question I ask you is this: have you got a contingency plan when there's no more diesel coming into this country? If you don't, you'd better get one quick. Because I don't know, do you have your own diesel tanks at the yard, or do you rely on the petrol station down the street? I don't know what you do there, but if you haven't and you can get more supplies, you'd better, because what we may find that the government will shift from level 1 to level 4 overnight. And that will be quite disastrous, because you guys have got a lot of things that run on diesel. And I think I've seen somewhere where your diesel costs even now are twice what they were, and there's something like $2,500 a day extra. Is that correct? That makes $5,000 a day for diesel for this council. Now, what the result of that will be is that anything that requires diesel will need to be deferred, like the roading on Stony Creek Road and those sorts of things. They require a lot of diesel to get them done, so they'll need to be deferred. And it's going to be a big thing, and everything, even the new arena building, it requires diesel to cart the stuff here, there and everywhere else. And level 4, as far as I would understand, would be rationing diesel so that there's some food turns up at the supermarket. Because if they stop, then the 3 days that are stacked up at the supermarket will probably vanish in half a day for those who've got a bit of petrol, because everyone go panic buying. And that will cause a lot of trouble. And if there's no food, I don't need to tell you, I don't think, if there's no food in the supermarket, what's going to happen? Now, I'm not trying to be too heavy on this, but we're in a very vulnerable situation. The diesel or the fuel clock is a moving target, but as far as I can tell, there's very little on the water. There's only 5 days of diesel on the water at the moment, and there's 4 days of petrol and 10 days of jet fuel. And these things affect every part of our operation in this country. So I just want to warn you that that's the case, and you need to have a contingency plan if you haven't got one, and get on with it. So I think I've said my thing. You've got a list of things there that I said need to be deferred, so I don't need to talk about that. So any questions?
Thank you, Ian, for your submission. And I'll now open up for questions, and we have Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Ian, for your considerations and sharing them with us. Just interested around the contingency planning side of things. What, if any, role would you like to see the community have in contingency planning?
Well, I think you've got to assess everything that's got diesel and say, well, if there's no diesel, those things are just going to stop or not even begin.
Yeah, understood. So my question is, what, if any, role you would like to see the community have in council's contingency planning?
Well, they've got, effectively, one of the big things is you've got to somehow be able to keep the rubbish moving and the recycle, because otherwise that's just going to build up around houses and cause a lot of problems. And we've seen that in, over the years of where rubbish collection's gone on strike and what happens very quickly in the street. So we don't need that.
Indeed, thanks. And that kind of leads on to the second part of my question then, is what you would have seen as the absolute core things that should be the very highest priority. You gave us some examples of things that you were quite happy to see deferred or even permanently stopped, but in terms of things that you see as absolutely essential. So I'm hearing in that public health and things related to that in terms of rubbish and recycling. What would be the other things that you'd want to see, say, in the top 3 essentials?
Well, everything that's got diesel in it will speak for itself if there's no diesel. So you just won't be able to do it. That'll be that. And it'll be force majeure. That's the word I think is the way it will be. However, it all depends on what's going out through the Hormuz Strait. And there's 4 boats got through yesterday, but they're going elsewhere, not going to where we get anything from. The other thing that happens, Winstone's been to America and they're going to look after us. But if they send us any oil out of Texas, it takes 40 days to get here.
Thank you. Appreciate those responses, Ian. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, no other questions? Well, thank you very much, Ian, for your time and for your submission, which will be taken into consideration.
Thank you. I think you need to consider it very carefully.
Thank you, sir. Next, I'd like to call Christine Staples forward, please. Good morning, Christine. Your microphone is live.
See if that works. Right. I'm Chrissy. I'm part of the Palmerston North Residents Group and have been very interested in this budget.
Excuse me, darling. Oh,
That should
is
be
it?
on. That's on. That was
It's
on.
just,
Okay, Julia? Yeah, sorry. Very interested in this budget and just looking at, as Ian said, and I want to reiterate some of what he said about getting an Irishman's rise for the pensioners. It's just gone absolutely nowhere because of the price of fuel and you all know all this. Anyway, because you're struggling with it too, I guess. Council debt in the report we got was from 290 million to 385 million, with an increase of at least 90 million. That's, if my math's not wrong, it's almost 2,700 a household in increased debt. And just having a look at where we're facing, the New Zealand government net debt, as you can see, from 2013 up until last year, you can see the massive rise over the COVID spending we had, and it's just carried on going up and up and up. Well, that has greatly impacted all of our lives to a huge extent, and the level of debt now per household, and the operating deficit, the government spending more than it earns, which we all know counts for trouble when we do it in our own households. Operating deficit is 9.3 billion in the past year. High debt levels, 58 billion in 2019 to 182 billion by 2025, and about 41.8% of GDP. And interest costs that we're paying as a nation are 8.9 billion a year. We're not a big nation, we're a small nation. And that is bigger than the spend of justice, defence, housing. When you think that paying interest on debt is bigger than those 3 very large areas of government, is pretty massive. Now, the government debt, here's your debt clock. This is thanks to the Taxpayers Union, who do quite a bit of work in the background here. But as of this week, my household share and yours is 140,764. Probably higher than that even now. And as you can see, the growth of debt per hour
is a couple of $1 million. No problem at all, is it, for a country our size? That's why we are, I believe, entering into, quite hard times, actually. And the cost of living increases, fuel scarcity, global disruption are all impacting on us all, as we know. Here's our little chart of the Taxpayers Union fuel clock, which I think this one was last night's one. So, as Ian said, not a lot of days in storage at all. So I've asked that a lot of projects be put on hold until at least 2028. And the reason is global deterioration of financial security. I read this morning that I believe it's the UAE has said that their finances have been greatly impacted by the war, and other nations also. So we've got the Iranian war, which I was talking to an ex-military man the other day, and he said that war won't be over soon. That war is going to escalate most likely before it, any peace agreement comes to it. And he said that will impact us, that will impact the world. So that'll impact our fuel supplies as well. One of the things that I wanted to talk about specifically with your International Relations Department, and I was having a look because it was mentioned that you do a lot of work with foreign students and those who bring them in from overseas into our schools, university, etc. And I thought, well, the Ministry of Education, or Education NZ, has 82 staff in 14 locations around the world, and they work with all sectors of education, both in New Zealand and overseas. Tourism. Tourism New Zealand supports regional tourism organisations, have partnerships through the eyesights, things like that. Business has New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, Chamber of Commerce, work with overseas entities as well, and government we have MIMBI and MFAT, who are all funded by government to do these relating to overseas interests. And I thought, why do we have an international department and council when it's already been funded and done by government? So it seems like a bit of a double up there in some areas. Now you may know that there are groups in Palmerston North who submit for funding for what they do. Ian and I have hosted foreign students before, and the organisation we worked with, the guy funded it all himself. He had a trip to Japan every year, and he was able to fund his entire operation himself. And I just wondered why some of these groups have to come to the ratepayer for money rather than funding it themselves. That's that bit. The other part I put on the bottom of my submission was about transparency and accountability, and I was hunting through the budget for what the staffing levels here are and the costs of staffing. And I really couldn't find specifics. So I wonder where the staff numbers and costs are listed in the budget. They're not listed separately. And I thought that was a little bit of a shame, because that means that the ratepayer can't keep up with, you know, what's happening in council regarding staffing and the cost of staffing. Also, consultancy fees and projects. We understand that consultants are required on some things, but I understand that you'll be looking at consultants for, say, doing the Anzac Road, when that development may or may not go ahead yet. What I'm saying in all of this is, I think with what is happening at the moment in New Zealand and the world and in our financial climate, I think that you should be looking at holding back and deferring the projects. I mean, it's lovely to have them. I agree with the guys from the art gallery. I've enjoyed the art gallery before. However, there are some areas of spending that I believe that we need to put on hold so that we can see what the climate is going to be, and when we know that we have a solid financial base in New Zealand to run these projects, then we do it. I'm of a generation where my parents went through the Great Depression, and many of us older guys remember them talking about it, about the hardships, about the swaggers who went from town to town and place to place with packs on their backs looking for any little job where they could get a meal, just to get food. That sort of thing. The poverty was terrible, and it took us a long, long time to recover from that. It took the world a long time to recover from it. And so I'm just saying that if we go into a massive financial depression, we'll be looking at a totally different scenario. And just keep that in the back of your mind when you're thinking about what you plan to spend in Palmerston North, because we may well be looking down the barrel of a big cannon, as it were, of financial hardship. So I'd just like to say, just remember those in the city who are already struggling to pay their rates and already having a really hard time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're almost out of time and we don't have any questions for you, so thank you very much, and your submission will be taken into consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have submission number 349. I'd like to call forward Mary Ann Paul, please. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm just lining up the communications things that we've received.
No problem.
I'm going to approach, I fully agree, I'm part of the residents group, and I fully support everything that they've said. My main thing is debt recovery. I feel it's not happening. So residents are oh no, hang on a minute, there was one thing. Ears, do you know what your ears are for? Hearing and listening is a skill, right? So as I go through, just remember that statement. So yes, residents are hurting financially and are having to make tough budgeting choices. Councils need to do the same. So I remember speaking here about a year ago that councils do need to make wise decisions. So I have to thank Hayden Fitzgerald for the work that he has done. So I have actually quoted some things there, like $427,000 on design and consenting work for Anzac Park, Civic Marae and Cultural Centre. $500,000 on international relations. $8.87 million for new construction of the CT Arena. Nearly $1.6 million on climate change and sustainability programs. About $14.5 million to service existing debt, which is about 9.5% of total rates revenue. Libraries costing a net $13 million. A $2 million loss on social housing. $51,000 on operational support to Massey, Botanical Gardens. We couldn't understand that one at all. And the total debt projected to reach an $386 million. This pattern, guys, is just unsustainable. I think what you have to do, look, I've got these 3 books here. I wonder how many were printed, how many ratepayers actually got to read it. It's actually very complex. You'd be lucky if even 1% of the ratepayers actually looked at it. Then we get an abridged version. Yeah, there's some pretty things in there, but it's a come down from this, so things get lost. And then the last one was this, and once again, things get lost again as well. So my point is, we need to trust that you guys are doing the best job that you can. We're not all financially savvy. Even though I've been in business for 35 years, I know how to run a business. You can't run it at a loss. So thank you, Hayden, for all that information. And thank you for Karen for her. I think you tend to really question a lot of things. And I think there are people on this council who actually probably don't ask questions. I've been to about 3 or 4 meetings, and it's just, do these people not ask questions? So we get people who are really diligent about the economy, and then we've got people who've got answers of why they want to do things, and then we've got a group of people in the middle that are really, are they sitting on the fence? Do they actually ask questions? I mean, that's just what we don't know. So councils have to prioritise core infrastructures and deliver value for money, right? They need to focus on essential services and just really cut the waste and stop treating ratepayers like an endless cash machine. Ratepayers actually need relief now, not in 1, 2 or 3 years, right now. In actual fact, a lot of people actually can't accommodate these extra payments, especially with the fuel issue. They've got nothing else to budget to. Makes life very, very difficult. And that's going to hit, like the other 2 people who've just spoken before, it's going to hit us, everyone. And then you'll realise what it's like, what you've actually got to budget. I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you. We have some councillors wanting to ask you some questions.
Actually, to be honest, like I said, I need to trust you guys to be able to look at these different things. And you've got to face up to what the economy is about. So, like I said right at the beginning, your ears are for hearing, but what's your listening skills like? All right. So, yeah, no questions, if that's all right.
You don't want any questions?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you for your time, and your submission will be taken into consideration. Appreciate it. Okay, next, councillors, we're working from planning and miscellaneous fees, and it's number 4. I'd like to call forward the Alcohol Health Watch. No, they're online. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Ready when you are.
That's always a relief when we're joining virtually. Thank you. Mr Chair and committee members, thank you for the opportunity to present. Ko Andrew Galloway, tōku ingoa. My name's Andrew Galloway. I'm the Executive Director here at Alcohol Health Watch Trust. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to make the submission on licensing fees as part of the feedback on your draft fees and charges for 26-27 years. By way of introduction, Alcohol Health Watch is a national organisation providing credible, up-to-date evidence and advice regarding alcohol policy and planning matters. We coordinate networks such as the Cross-Council Local Alcohol Policy Network and other networks that support the sector and communities. We know about alcohol that of all drugs available in society, alcohol is the most harmful. It's the leading cause of preventable death, injury and ill health in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and the harms are far-reaching and felt deeply by individuals, whānau and community. Alcohol places a significant burden on your city and in fact the whole region and nationally, costing over $9.1 billion annually. And we know that what evidence there is often an underestimate of the total burden of disease that particularly affect groups that could be more vulnerable, such as young people, Māori and Pacific, and those in high socio-economic areas. We also know that local government have a key role supporting the system of control over the sale and supply of alcohol, and local government do this through a licensing regime. And fee setting is an important component of that system of control and part of package of measures which used comprehensively can create safer environments, significantly minimising rates of hazardous drinking and subsequent alcohol-related harm. And this includes things like alcohol control bylaws, also known as liquor bans, and local alcohol policies, and other related plans and policies. When the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act was developed, it envisaged a full cost recovery system for alcohol licensing. However, the fees prescribed in the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Fees Regulations 2013 have not kept pace with the costs faced by councils. As a result, many councils have raised concerns that they are effectively subsidising the work that they do in alcohol licensing, monitoring and enforcement, for example, through general rates. The shortfall in revenue is likely to worsen if the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Improving Alcohol Regulation Amendment Bill currently before the House is enacted. The bill is expected to change risk-based cost formulas for clubs and restaurants and introduce additional administrative requirements, placing further pressure on already what I suspect is stretched council resource. People like licensing inspectors, administrators, DLC secretariats. And this has the potential to provide additional cost through future regulations that could be made by the Minister if that Act goes through as it's drafted, the bill. While the alcohol fees on the Council website indicate that fees in the regulations will continue to apply for 26-27, we encourage Council to consider making a specific bylaw, and a growing number of other councils have done so or are doing one, to cover the actual costs of alcohol licensing in the city, so far as is allowed. An alcohol fees bylaw is a logical option for the council, even more so given the increased costs. The council setting realistic fees would meet the policy objective of the licensing regime, namely that recovering the costs incurred by council administering the licensing system, ensuring those that create the greatest need for regulatory effort bear the commensurate cost, to allow local circumstances to be reflected in the fees paid by operators and income received by the council, and to minimise alcohol-related harm to the extent that this can be achieved through a cost recovery regime. An alcohol licensing fees bylaw that sets fees that reflect the true cost of alcohol licensing is not only an effective harm reduction measure, but also supports positive community outcomes, and it aligns with the council's strategic goals. Members and Chair, thank you for the opportunity. I'm happy to take questions. Kia ora.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Andrew, does your organisation hold a position on the use of public funds for the purchase of alcohol for entertainment and what likes?
Great question, Councillor Fitzgerald. It's a great question. We don't have a formal policy position on it. However, I have been an employee within central government at a senior official level and also an employee in local government. And I know that most public entities are phasing out, if they've had alcohol being reimbursed or provided at events, are phasing that out for the number of really good reasons, that there is in fact no safe limit, and that in fact employers are often liable if they have a council event and something happens at that event, or could be found liable. Yeah, for good reason, most big organisations are shying away from providing alcohol or reimbursing it.
Thank you very much.
Question from Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Andrew, for your submission. I realise it's primarily focused around our fee structure. However, we have had a submission yesterday from someone asking for us to take a stronger stand on council supply of alcohol, and I'm wondering if you have a view about the appropriateness of council supplying alcohol at community events.
It's a great question, Councillor Naylor, and Do I have a view? I think it would be wise for council to consider that position. I think, like I said before, there is no safe limit. This is a product which only has no health benefit, and there is more and more scientific research pointing to the fact that there's no safe limit in relation to cancer risk or dementia risk. And we know the toll that alcohol takes on our community, both in terms of dependent drinkers and alcoholism and the long-term effects, but we also know there's huge burden on health system and on police enforcement and corrections and things like that from alcohol. So I think it would be sensible to review the position whether council provide alcohol, and if we were asked for a review, I would say it would be sensible not to, if I'm honest.
Thank you.
We have a question from Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Andrew. I'm just wondering, have you looked specifically at our level of fees, and do you have an idea of what percentage increase would be required? Because I would imagine that this is the type of submission that you're putting into a number of annual plans.
Yes, good question, Councillor. We haven't done the analysis on your council in particular in the level of fees. What we can share with you, and I'm happy to share with you, is an Excel spreadsheet of what other councils have done, because that gives you an idea of exactly what's possible. And I'll read the, it's in the submission, but I'll read the councils that have done it: Hastings, Waipa, Hamilton, Hutt, Kapiti, Porirua, Tauranga and Wellington. So there's quite a number of councils, and many will be similar in size and constitution perhaps to yours, and I think that would give you a good relative guide.
Okay, so would you be able to share that with us, because I don't see the Excel spreadsheet in your submission?
I can send that now to the Secretariat.
Thank you very much.
Kia ora.
We have another question from Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Andrew. Somewhat aligned to Councillor Johnson's question, but just interested across the, well, first interested, it seems that you are making the case that there's a gap between the actual costs of the regime and what is recovered by any council. Is there a New Zealand average number of how big that gap is, either in dollars terms or percentage terms?
I would have to look at the analysis, and I don't, sorry. My dog is in the office and he's going wild. Apologies. We don't have that.
We couldn't tell, it's fine.
what the spreadsheet will give you is an idea of what other councils have done as a guide. Councillor.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. That's all the questions we have. Thank you for your submission. It will be taken into consideration. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Kia ora.
Thank you. Okay, we are still working from planning and fees, councillors. Number 6 is the next one, resident. Welcome, Kevin Judd. Come forward, please. That's okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, if you press the right-hand button on your consoles to make it go live, and you're good to go when you're ready.
Thank you for that. Good morning, everyone, still. My name is Kevin Judd. I am the Managing Director of Resident Consulting Limited. We provide surveying, land development, civil engineering and planning services to the region. Beside me is one of our directors, Glenn Young, and our Senior Planner, Oliver Harper-Quayle. They are here to help with any questions that Council may have. On behalf of Resident and our clients, I thank you for the opportunity to speak to our submission. I note that this year there are 7 submissions to your proposed fees. This is significantly up from 0 submissions in 2023, 1 in 2024 and 2 in 2025. Of the 7 submissions received this year, 6 relate to the proposed increase in planning fees. 2 submissions are from developers, 3 from companies that provide land development services, including ourselves, and 1 from the New Zealand Survey and Spatial, which is our survey institute. All the 6 submissions have a common theme, being they are strongly against the proposed increases. The amount of strong submissions against the fees should be noted by Council. We wish to focus your attention on 4 matters. The first is a significant increase in fixed fees. As an example, the indicative charges, or fixed fees as they're also called, for a non-notified subdivision or land use consent is proposed to increase from $3,700 to $12,000. Council fees are not an attempt to provide a quote or even an estimate. It states what council believes to be a fair and fee for that activity. If council's fees exceed that fixed fee, then the applicant has the right to review costs. It is our understanding that the council fees were calculated by averaging recent costs from applications within that category. Those costs ranged between $3,500 and $32,800. Two-thirds of those applications' costs were less than the proposed new fixed fee of $12,000. What this means is that 66% of all applicants would not have been allowed to have their costs reviewed, and that would stop the council being kept accountable for such fees. If council is concerned that applicants are taking fixed fees as a fee estimate, council should add a note to the fee schedule advising a range for each activity. We believe that the present fees should not be increased, however we suggest that a fee range be added to provide applicants with a better idea of potential costs if council wishes to do so. The second item we wish council to consider is the proposed officer hourly rates. These rates are well above market rates. As an example, the new City Council fees for a senior planner is $270 an hour. The market rate for that same senior planner would be $215 an hour, which is a $55 increase. A planning officer, council were proposing to charge them out at $255 an hour, where the market charges the same person out at $180 an hour. That's a $75 increase from the market. And someone who works in the council's planning team is going to be at $225 an hour versus the market rate of $165. All the market rates have been obtained from the Consulting Survey of New Zealand annual survey, salary survey, so they are recent information. City council fees are on average at least 30% higher than the market rates. When the hourly rates are also compared against other councils, P&CC fees are in the upper quartile. While we understand council has some significant overheads, these overheads should not be covered by exorbitant charge-out rates. These costs should be met by improved efficiencies. Thirdly, council wishes to on-charge contracted planners and or technical experts, what everyone calls external consultants, at the new proposed rates. In a nutshell, this means that when the external consultant completes a planning report and they forward their invoice to council, which could be in the order of $180 an hour, council will then add 50% to that invoice and then send the invoice to the applicant at $270 an hour. So in other words, adding $90 for just stamping and passing an invoice. And that's $90 per hour of the consultant's time spent doing that job. So if they spend 20 hours working that, there's $1,800 that council have added to the fee just to catch that fee and put an invoice and send it to the client. This is not acceptable and cannot, under any circumstances, be considered as fair and reasonable. This situation also highlights the previously discussed differential between market and council charge-out rates. Fourthly, we also suggest council embrace the use of AI. It's coming, we all have to accept that it is. And they should be using it to assist with their planning processes. We are now using it. Oliver might be able to answer your questions on that if you have some. And we find it very helpful, and it's providing cost savings to our clients and also time efficiencies as well. On a different slight matter, we note that planning fees are only a small portion of the fees that council charge for a subdivision. Council also charges for service connection fees, development levies, vehicle crossing fees, traffic management approvals, etc., etc., etc. And council fees can actually exceed $50,000 for every lot we create, which is a lot of money, and can obviously can deter development. In summary, we're here today to talk about transparency, accountability and fairness. We have no issue about a fair and reasonable cost recovery. However, the proposed fees do not provide such a mechanism. Rather, a means to hide inefficiencies, a means to avoid accountability, and a means to on-charge fees at a much greater cost than generally incurred. We ask you all to seriously consider the proposed fees and charges and hold the current fees for as the same as they are at present. And finally, we all don't want the cost to provide land for housing to be any more expensive than it already is, because what we do need is housing, and to have housing you have to have lots, and to have lots you've got to get a subdivision consent, and it all adds up. And you may think that developers make a lot of money, but there's lots of mums and dads out there who would sell their backyard if it was worth their while, and at the moment it's not worthwhile because these fees are just too much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen. I open up for questions. Mayor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, thanks, chaps, for coming in, and appreciate your quite detailed submission and your giving us a bit of a yardstick on where the city sits with others. Has it been filtered down to you that we are looking at a digital AI program, and it's coming? In fact, I'm meeting here in the building today. Do you know about that?
Not that we're aware of.
Okay, all right. We'll make sure that our officers get to you on that. But yeah, and if we were to hold the current fees, how do you suggest we manage that balance in the building here through efficiencies, or how would we do that?
We do see there are inefficiencies in council systems. One of the things we do note is, and I'll talk of a couple of examples that we've had in the last 2 or 3 years. I've had 2 subdivision consents that have taken at least 90 days of council time to process that application. Now that's 90 working days, and that's excluding, if you know anything about the Resource Management Act, Section 92 requests where the clock actually stops.
Yep.
So these applications took a very long time for council to do so. And as the Resource Management Act allows, if every day you're over 20 or 40 days, you get a 1% discount. So we had our fees discounted 50%. And one of them was reasonably significant, which was fine for the client of sorts, but it didn't probably reimburse them for the cost it took, the holding cost it took for that consent to get there. Because, if you bought a development blocks worth $3 or $4 million, you've got a lot of money sitting there waiting to recover, and it just doesn't happen. So I think if you could speed up your delivery, I think would be a very good thing.
And your views on the use of consultants? But bearing in mind that you are a consultant as well.
Well, I'm not going to say. If you had the option to have a consultant do your job for $180 an hour, or get someone from the City Council to do it for $270, saying there is no difference in abilities, and I'm not saying there is, we would go with consultants every day of the week. They work in a market where they are actually submitting consents and also approving consents, so they have a very good balance on how to approve, I should say. And one of the things I've always thought about planning is that to be a good planner, you probably need to work both sides of the fence at some stage during your life, so you actually understand what it's like trying to get a subdivision consent through the system, and so you have some empathy, perhaps, for what the developer's trying to achieve.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I appreciate your lengthy submission.
Okay, we're almost out of time, so we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for your time, gentlemen, and your submission, which will be taken into consideration.
Thank you.
Now, councillors, we're still working from planning and fees. Number 7 is next, Truebridge and Associates Limited. Welcome, Ross Bidlake. Good morning. Press the right-hand button on your console to go live. Ready when you are.
Awesome. Thank you, councillors. My name is Ross Bidlake. I'm a senior planner with Truebridge Associates, working in the development sector, much like my competition who was just sitting here before you. I wholeheartedly agree with what they say. There's not really much I can contradict there. I want to speak specifically to some of the concerns that I raised with the proposed fees and charges. Particularly, I think the scale of the issue increase cannot reasonably be explained by the differences in the district plans as was put forward by PNCC, which means the issue lies elsewhere. It's either in your internal systems, workflow design, or your staff competence. The real issue isn't the scale of the increase, it's why the baseline costs are so high in the first place. The proposed fees are large, but the more important question is, why are the internal process costs already sitting at a level that produces such an extreme increase when formalised? If your starting point is already inflated, then updating your policy simply locks in your inflated costs into that system, and you are locking in the inefficiencies within your service. Your proposed times, if we reflect that cost into an hourly rate, are significantly higher than sector norms. Across routine tasks, it's implied that PNCC processing hours are several times higher than those of comparable councils, often as much as 4 times. This is a consistent pattern, and it's not an isolation, and I don't have any isolated examples of it. It is consistent. When a council requires 5 to 7 times longer to complete a standardised check, it signals that there's potentially a structural issue. This can't be explained by the differences in the district plan, as I said before. I work with district plans all over the region, including this one. If the differences in the district plan were the thing that were creating these inequalities across them, I would expect when I write a planning application for Palmerston North, it would take me 3 to 4 times longer, because I work with the same district plan, than it would take me, for example, to write something to Horowhenua or Manawatu. It does not. Other councils work with equally complex planning frameworks. And often discretionary activities or non-complying activities at those councils can be done more efficiently at a cheaper cost than a controlled activity can be done in Palmerston North. It's the same with the certification process. PNCC has indicated significantly more time needed than other councils for costs that can't reasonably be attributed to the district plan. The scale of this difference is too large to be attributed to rules or policy settings. That's why the explanation of plans vary between councils does not resolve the underlying concern, which is likely processes. The natural conclusion that I have of this is if it's not the plan, it's either competence or it's the systems. And now it's easy to blame the planners. Politicians do it all the time. We see it from central government, and I'd hate to see it at our local governments. I'd like to think that we are appreciated more here by those that we work closest to. And I want to be very clear, I have a lot of respect for the planners that work at PNCC. They do a thankless job, and they're often blamed for everything, whether it's right or wrong. I work with your planners regularly. Some of the consultants that work for you, I work across different councils as well. And while I argue with them regularly, and some of them may not like me sometimes, the individuals are capable and they are very professional. I have a lot of respect for the work that they do. However, even highly skilled planners will struggle to deliver efficiency if the system around them is slow, fragmented, or poorly optimized. And I believe this is where the crux of your issue lies, in the environment, not with the people. The cause is almost certainly systems, workflow, or process design. When the implied hours fall well outside sector norms, it points to internal factors such as duplication of steps, unnecessary assessment, inefficient handovers, inconsistent internal processes, or legacy RMA workflows that have never been modernised. These are organisational issues that your planners have to work through. Without a process review, this just becomes a cost recovery exercise. And if you simply pass on the internalised costs to applicants without examining why those costs are so high in the first place, your fees will continue to rise. Service delivery will not improve in terms of actual timeframes. Your applicants in this area, i.e. your developers, whether that's mum and dad developers or large developers, are going to continue to pay more, which will increase the cost of housing in the area. The underlying causes, if you do this, will still remain unaddressed. That's the risk of treating this kind of update as an administrative alignment rather than a performance review. What you as elected members need to consider, in my view, is it's not whether or not Palmerston North can recover its costs. It can, any council can, especially when legislation aligns with you being able to do that. You need to look at whether the costs in the first place are efficient, reasonable, aligned with sector norms, and are reflective of a modern fit-for-purpose system. My closing message to you is The question in front of you today is not simply whether you can recover its costs. Your baseline processing times are outside of normal practice. So you can recover those costs either by reducing those timelines or by increasing your costs. The drivers of your costs are most likely structural. They are not district plan related, and they're certainly not staff related. If you formalise these fees without first understanding why your internalised costs are so high, you risk locking in these inefficiencies that I've discussed. You have an opportunity here to take pause, ask the right questions, and to ensure that your fees that your applicants and constituents are paying are tied to a process that's genuinely fit for purpose. You need to do a system review, not just a fee update. It will deliver fairness, transparency, and better outcomes, both for the council and for the community that you serve. Right now, the evidence to me suggests that this issue is not within your district plan. It's not within your staff competence. It is systems. And until those systems are reviewed, your fees will continue to increase unjustifiably. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. We'll open up for questions. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ross, thank you for that very detailed submission. Would you suggest that our city is currently missing out on projects and the associated economic benefits of those projects from these higher fees compared to like those deals going to neighbouring councils, for example?
Short answer, yes.
Thank you.
Mayor Smith.
Actually, I've just changed my question from my colleagues. So could you name something?
Can I name something in terms of?
A project that we've missed out
on?
Rather than say just housing.
I think the biggest issue is probably not so much the fees, it's timeframes. Like I've had clients that have come to me and they've had weighing up two projects and they've gone to Manawatu because the cost isn't any easier in terms of their development contributions. They're cheaper here, but they've gone to Manawatu because they know that it's going to come back to them faster, and quite often the speed in which they can get something back has a bigger impact on the cost of their overall project.
So that's commercial projects, not housing?
Well, a lot of what I do is subdivision and housing.
Okay, it's housing. Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to clarify that for everybody, including my colleague. So just on, and thank you for your submission. So how, you're talking about structural, there's some structural stuff there that you believe is not right, and obviously efficiency, and you would have heard the submission earlier. Where do you think technology comes into it?
Yeah, I think technology is going to play a big role in it. Without having worked for PNCC or been a consultant for PNCC, I can't speak to your specific systems. Yeah, I think AI is something that you do need to look at, and you're looking at it. That's great. Be interesting to see how much that's going to change the system. But I think more likely it's duplication in processing.
And would you welcome to be like the sector, the industry, to be part of some of that co-design of that? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we'll sneak one more in. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Ross. One thing that we spend a bit of time on around this table is our risk appetite and where that risk appetite sits in different domains. Mm-hmm. So given the kind of legacy that we have in this country around things like leaky homes and the costs that have come back onto councils, what's your view as a professional on what our risk appetite should be to be optimized?
That's a really good question. Risk is something that is bought either by you or by a developer when it comes to some of these significant developments. Now, what that looks like for council is quite different to what it looks like to a developer. So if I'm developing, whether it's large or small, if I'm a mum and dad developer or a larger developer, if I'm expected to come up with $50,000 worth of reporting before I even know if I'm allowed to do a project, that's significant risk. It's different if I know I'm allowed to do that project and I have to come up with that reporting afterwards in detail. So the risk to council, I guess, is around the level of detail it's going to require before giving a yes or a no, rather than that risk disappearing altogether. We understand that there will be risk in accepting things without knowing everything, but that's just part of what we do. That is part of planning. You're not going to know everything before the go-ahead is given.
But that risk ultimately sits with council in the long term, is that correct, from your view?
Not necessarily. The risk that sits with council is probably more aligned to where your future planning sits. So if you're looking at rezoning areas that are flood prone, that's bad. If a developer is looking at rezoning something that is flood prone, they're going to have to prove to you that that's not a significant risk. There might be some details that are left out of that initial piece that would come at a detailed design stage, but they will have to prove absolutely that there's no risk to the future community.
Thanks. We better leave it there before testing the chair's patience.
Thank you very much.
Ross. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Ross, for your time and your submission, which was very informative, which will be taken into consideration. Appreciate it. Okay, next, councillors, we're back to the general submissions, number 218, and I'd like to welcome forward Federated Farmers, Ian and Hamish, and I believe we have Peter joining us online. Can you hear us, Peter?
Can you hear me?
Fantastic, yes we can, thank you. Now, gentlemen, if you press the right-hand button on your console to go live, ready when you are. Good morning.
Kia ora, g'day. My name's Ian Strawn. I'm the Manawatu Rangitikei Federated Farmers Provincial President. I'm a sheep farmer from up the track at Kiwitea there. Hamish Easton is our Dairy Chair from Foxton, and Peter Manich is our Regional Policy Manager. So thanks for the opportunity. First, I'd like to start with 3 bouquets. In fact, 4 bouquets. Can I just congratulate you on the council on a really fantastic rural games last month. It really puts Palmy on the map nationally, so well done. Right, the annual plan. First bouquet is well done for putting the uniform annual general charges from 200 to 300. So that's what we like to see. We'd like to see the full rate of 30% of the rate take is annual general charges. And you're having a rural rates differential. In a lot of our jurisdictions, when rates go up, say 5%, because of the nature of without rural differentials, the rural rates usually go up 2 or 3% higher, and they haven't in this case. So well done there. And the third thing is the discipline you've showed in only rising the rates on an average of that 4.9. So it's quite different to when I was in here a couple of years ago, quite a different situation. So can I congratulate you on that? So well done. So yes, I've outlined in our submission, we'd like to see that. In fact, we've come up with quite a bit of documentation over the last year to help come up with some suggestions for local council. So one of them is to raise that cap on uniform annual general charges above 30%. So we'd like to see, in the meantime, a full rate of 30. And the other thing is, since we just urge caution, since the plan was done in February, obviously there's been a bit happening overseas and things out of our control. And inflation, I see in your plan, inflation's forecast to go down, but it looks like it's going to go up. So we have to be very, very careful with that looking forward. Farmers are, we're down the bottom of the cost chain. We can't hand our costs on. So we're very vulnerable to things like rate rises. Obviously, diesel was talked about earlier, all these things. Even before this last bout of cost increases, our costs in the last 4 years have gone up 27% on average, and that's over sheep and beef and dairy. I know in the media you'll see a whole lot of talk about high commodity prices and things doing well. It's a very cyclical business, farming, and we have to make hay while the sun shines, literally. Sheep and beef farmers, and there's quite a few in your jurisdiction, have had 3 or 4 years of losing money. So we have to have these years where things go well, but we have to keep the costs in check, because when the cycle turns the other way, which it ultimately will, we want to make sure we're not on the downside and fighting a high cost structure. So yeah, so just thanks very much, but just be wary. In the last year, Federated Farmers, we're quite good at pointing out when things don't go well and things we don't like, but we're actually become quite constructive. We've got a very hard-working policy team that gets feedback from our 24 provinces around the country, and we've come up with 3 very good documents over the last 12 months. The first one was 10 policy priorities for incoming councillors. I'll leave these hard copy, and I'll send them in electronic form later on. The second one is and obviously there's some issues with local government, restoring confidence in local decision making, where we want to see a focus back to infrastructure, public services, raising those UAGCs above 30%, having roading funded more centrally, and constraining the amount that central government puts on councils. So that's in that report, and our most recent report is with regional councils coming to the end of the line. The announcement last year, we've come up. We're one of the few outfits actually in the country that have come up with a very comprehensive plan on how that should look, and in quite a lot of detail as well. And I'm happy to take any questions on that. Basically, how it affects Palmerston North. The main drive over the country. We've obviously got 78 councils, which is too many, but some of the smaller ones are going to have to amalgamate. Our main point of this report is to separate municipalities over 50,000 with the rural communities, but increase the power of community boards and rural catchment groups as well within that. So how that would affect our region is we'd like to see Palmerston North become a unitary in its own right, doing the regional council and district council functions, and the other district councils in our jurisdiction, in our area, make their own decisions whether they want to amalgamate, but share the regional council duties. But anyway, we've come through quite a lot of detail, and I'm happy to take questions, and we'll circulate this document and leave you the hard copy. So look, I'll leave it there. For any questions?
Thank you, gentlemen. We have Councillor Naylor.
Thank you all for your submission. Particular in section 3 of your submission, you've outlined some your expectations around sort of the level of rates increase. And in 3.3, you've talked about CPI being 3.1% and possibly rising to 4.1% by July. Just interested to understand what your expectations are of what a reasonable rates increase would look like in the current environment.
Well, we always advocate for rate increases at the rate of inflation.
Yeah.
Look, that's why I've given you a bouquet, because this is as close as it ever gets. But often farm inflation's more. So to have rate increases above the rate of inflation, we start to get into that zone where we're over a number of years with the compounding rates. We get that unsustainability.
Yep.
At the end of the day, if it's over the rate of inflation, the rates bill becomes a bigger and bigger and bigger part of businesses. So it's got to be somewhere near the rate of inflation.
The current rate of inflation?
Yes. Well, yeah, and obviously that's going to rise, but it's even though the council showed a lot of discipline with their and lowering from their long-term plan, it's still above the rate of inflation.
Yeah. Yep. So you're looking at 3.1% then?
Yeah. Yep. That would be our ideal, because as I say, farmers are at the bottom of the chain. We can't pass those costs on, and we're going to get to a low commodity cycle where those costs are going to hurt us again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Question from Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Ian, Hamish and Peter online. You've emphasised your expenses and your costs, which I acknowledge, have increased. You haven't mentioned that farmers have recently had a $3.2 billion windfall, if they're dairy farmers, through the sale of mainland. So I feel, you perhaps haven't given us a balanced picture of the financial situation for farming.
Sure. Look, I'm a sheep and beef farmer, so I get none of that. Within your jurisdiction, there's a number of dairy farms, but there's also a lot of, especially Ashew Stucklers, there's a lot of sheep and beef farms who get none of that, who've had the 4 years of not making money. And the other thing too, I'd say only half those farms within your area are Fonterra farms, so half of the dairy farms haven't got that. But yeah, I did have a dairy farm for 10 years, and between 2000, it's not always roses, between 2013 and 16, we were carrying tax losses from losing money. So as I say, it's a commodity cycle, and those Fonterra farmers, they've been invested for a lot of years, and look, occasionally there's a windfall, and good on them. But that money is going to be largely invested back into the local economy. So I think it's a good news thing.
Okay. Well, my point is just, for us to get a balanced view, I suppose, of where costs and income are. In your key recommendations, you've recommended abandoning expenditure on public transport, libraries, swimming pools, public urban development, arenas, reserves and community centres. Can you justify that comment?
Peter, I'll get you to chip in on this if I could.
We're actually out of
so
time.
looking at where the council and the nation is sitting with imminent rises in the price of global crude oil and the flow-on cost that's going to have for everyone, it's prudent to really crunch down on public expenditure. And when times get tough, it's important to look at what you do spend your money on. It's wise or prudent to perhaps invest in things that are going to earn you money, but not so wise to spend money on things that just make you feel good. And looking at the council's proposal in the consultation document, I would suggest that extra bus stops is one of those feel-good things that the council could perhaps defer expenditure on. There is also the urban growth area just out of Palmerston North that the council hasn't started work on yet. If it perhaps defers that for 12 months and sees how the economic situation is lying in 12 months' time, it's not going to be a big delay in starting that work. But if the council starts that work this year, it's going to be locked into contracts for furthering that work, and that's going to be potentially in the context of an inflationary cycle, which is going to be worse for the community and everyone. So it might be prudent to pause that for 12 months and then see how much further that brings rates down.
Thank you, Peter. We'll have to leave it there. We're out of time. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and your submission, which will be taken into consideration.
Yeah, thanks very much. We can
just leave it on the by the door there. Thank you. Right, councillors. Next we have submission number 128. I'd like to welcome forward Aura Connect and Pauline, please. Okay, councillors, submission number 128, Aura Connect. And do we have Pauline here, please? And Matador, sorry. Thank you. No, we're coming back to it. The order's been changed, councillors. Welcome.
Oh,
Tēnā
Really, really
koutou katoa, ko Pauline Hiroti toko ingoa, he uri tēnei ngonga wairaki Ngāti Apa, he kaimahi au o Te Tahi o Ruahine. My name is Pauline and I work at Te Tahi as a kaimahi, and I am the project coordinator for the Ora Connect space, and in that capacity that's what we will be speaking to today. I just want to acknowledge our Ora Connect partners that are here to support this submission, and also those that spoke to you yesterday, Sport Manawatu and Nuvaka Trust, and also E&M. I know they touched on the kaupapa that we're speaking about today, and hopefully through the next 10 minutes we will be able to kind of elaborate a little bit further on that kaupapa. First of all, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak to this, and I also want to express our sincere gratitude to PNCC for the ongoing support that you provide as a partner to the Ora Connect Alliance. And I also want to acknowledge our Seek to Lead partnership with PNCC, which supports our role as project coordination within the Ora Connect space. And on top of that, also through that partnership, we were able to complete our He Ao Tō Mua He Iwi Tōnui whānau voice research document within the 4412, and beyond that, establish our 4412 data digital dashboards, which just give us a much more comprehensive picture of what's happening for whānau and 4412, both through statistical and whānau voice data. So thank you very much for your contribution to that. Ora Connect is a collective impact alliance dedicated and passionate about the 4412 area, which is our southwestern suburbs in Palmerston North. We are a collective of 20 partners and bring together iwi, community organisations, health and education providers, local groups and statutory agencies like yourself around the shared aspiration of 4412, connecting communities for wellbeing. A core part of our mahi is ensuring that whānau voice, particularly the voices of tamariki, rangatahi and communities that are often underrepresented, genuinely informs our planning and decision making. In 2025, we completed the He Ao Tō Mua He Iwi Tōnui, a comprehensive whānau voice document informed by engagement with over 600 whānau in the 4412 area, and we intentionally designed this to prioritise Māori, Pasifika, Rima and rangatahi, ensuring those that are most impacted by inequities were centred. Alongside this kōrero, we have strengthened our understanding through the data digital dashboards we spoke to, and these two sets of data allow us to hold both breadth and depth in statistical and whānau voice data. Together, these sources give us a clear and credible picture of what's happening in the 4412, who lives there, their aspirations, where pressures sit and where investment can make the greatest difference. The data paints a very clear picture of both need and opportunity. The wider 4412 community is home to approximately 30,000 residents, with 76% of those residents living in high deprivation, classified as NZ Dep 6 to 10. Within the wider context, Highbury experiences the largest concentration of need, with approximately 3,000 whānau, the majority of whom are living within areas of high dep. 4412 is also a very youthful community. Of the 30,000 residents that live there, roughly 10,000 people are under the age of 24, meaning that 1/3 of that population are tamariki and rangatahi. The youthful population is even more pronounced again in Highbury, where the population is approximately 3,000 people, but includes roughly 980 residents aged 19 years and under, and the median age of just 30.94. This positions Highbury as one of the areas with the highest concentrations of tamariki and rangatahi, not only within the 4412, but within the wider scope of Palmerston North, alongside the highest levels of social deprivation. From an equity perspective, this combination does matter. When we compare this with areas such as Memorial Park or the Esplanade, we see clear contrast. Suburbs with lower deprivation levels and a less youthful population benefit from high quality, well-developed park infrastructure, while places like Farnham Park, located in the heart of Highbury, have seen comparatively less investment. Across He Ao Tō Mua He Iwi Tōnui, we went and delivered workshops in kura, and a lot of the things came out of that, and a lot of tamariki had ambitions to have a bigger park, to be able to go to parks in closer proximity, and even things like wishing that a pool was open. They may sound simple, but they do clearly speak to an unmet need within that community. Whānau, particularly parents raising neurodiverse tamariki, often talked about the lack of inclusive and sensory responsive play environments within that area. Some shared that the only park meeting the needs of those neurodiverse tamariki were on the other side of town, particularly pertaining to Memorial Park, which creates real barriers when you're living in social deprivation and do not have easy access to transport. So why Farnham Park matters to us as an alliance? It's a central place in Highbury and it already functions as a gathering point for whānau. However, its current infrastructure does not reflect the demographic reality of the community, again being highly youthful and having higher levels of deprivation, and also a greater reliance on safe and local public spaces. Revitalising Farnham Park is a practical place-based response to the data and lived experience of the whānau living in the 4412. It's an opportunity to address an equity gap and to invest where the need and potential impact is greatest. We see 4412 as a puna of potential. A lot of beautiful young people where early place-based intervention and investment can create meaningfully long-term outcomes for whānau. Again, this is not an idea without a plan. AutoConnect is a well-established collective impact initiative and we are well ready to do the mahi. A Farnham Park working group has already been established with the initial scoping underway. Through our community-led development partnership agreement with DIA, we have recently been successful in our application for funding to cover the initial project planning, a socio-political scan and a design brief. We are also confident that AutoConnect and its partners will be in a position to contribute approximately $200,000 towards the Farnham Park Revitalisation project, and we are seeking a further contribution from Palmerston North City Council alongside staff required to support this initiative. This represents a genuine funding partnership, leveraging community-led effort, central government investment and council support to deliver a high-quality outcome for the 4412 community. In closing, the Farnham Park Revitalisation project is about safety, inclusion, wellbeing and belonging. It's about ensuring that one of Palmerston North's most youthful and under-supported communities has access to public spaces that reflect their needs and their aspirations as whānau. This proposal is grounded in strong data, deep whānau voice, and an established alliance that is ready to deliver. We respectfully ask for Council's support and welcome any questions. Kia ora.
Thank you. We have a question from Councillor Bowen.
Apologies, I've just gone completely blank as to what that was. I'll come back in.
No problem. We will skip to Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Pauline. Really interested in the approach here. It seems the history of investing in play spaces in the city has been largely ratepayer driven, and rare has it been that we've had somebody come to this table and say, we have $200,000 ready to go. So I'm interested in kind of what the drive is behind that versus simply coming here and saying, this place needs fixed, fix it.
Tēnā tātou. Thanks for the opportunity, as Pauline said. I guess that AutoConnect has been operating over a large number of years now. And so I guess that we are looking for where there are solutions, where partnerships can be formed, and where community development can be sustained within a community. We're not really, as you say, just wanting to come and say, can you give us the money? We don't expect to be able to find other monies to put into that. So I think, that's at the heart of our drive, is really being whānau centred and also changing some of the narrative of that part of our community. Obviously, some people will know that Te Tihi also has been building houses for home ownership in the 4412. Yeah. We've built 24 houses. We've just, out of those 24, the original 5 on Botanical Road, all of those whānau have now bought those properties within 5 years. So we're, I guess, changing the landscape.
Beautiful, thanks. There's others in the queue, so I'll jump out, Chair.
There is, and there's 1 minute. Please be brief. Councillor Johnson. No, sorry, Councillor Naylor. We'll get there. Thank you.
Thanks to you both for submitting. In terms of the Farnham Park Revitalisation project, I'm just interested to know, have there been conversations already with our council officers about that project and whether there are some of our budgets whether that's a part of our work program already?
Yeah, you guys are great in the Order Connect Alliance, and we have started to have those conversations, particularly around the timing of when things are scheduled, both with roading and that sort of stuff, and with park upgrades. We are in conversations. There's nothing kind of nutted and bolted out, but it is happening, and they are part of our working group.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's all we have time for. Thanks very much for your time and your submission, which will be taken into consideration. Okay, last for this session, councillors, we have number 234, and I'd like to welcome forward Carleen from the Mash Trust, please. Good morning. Please press the button on the right-hand side of your console to go live. Ready when you are.
Thank you. And kia ora. Mayor Grant, Chair Arnott, councillors, and also council staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today on behalf of MASH Trust and also our Luck venue. I'm John Falk, the Chair of MASH, and with me is our CEO, Carleen Edwards. I realise you have our papers, so I'm going to keep this brief. MASH has been based here in Palmerston North for 35 years. We have 650 staff, and we support in the order of 2,000 people across the lower North Island. In our city, we provide support to the 18.8% of residents living in poverty, including the 280 odd, give or take, living in cars, on couches, or sometimes facing eviction. In our residential and community services, we provide disability, mental health, and additional recovery support services. Last year, our team at Luck Venue delivered over 9,000 meals, and that's growing. We have a projection to go well ahead of that. We do free breakfasts, $2.50 lunches, and takeaways. That's not an investment, by the way. But Luck also provides showering and laundering facilities, a resource centre, vocational and craft activities, and housing navigation, amongst others. We partner with community law, with the DHB, with Housing and Advice Centre, with the library. We also have a barber, a dentist, and we're currently finalising the access to GP services. All this takes a team of terrific people that are really committed to their task. We currently receive Palmerston North City Council funding of $55,000 a year, and we receive many donations, especially in goods and time. But all this good work costs. Our meals budget runs to $450 a week. Although how they do it on that, I don't know. After donations, and we need to have 2 staff on at all times. This leads to a net cost to MASH of $12,000 a month, which we must meet from our general money that we have. Even with all this, we can't meet all the needs out there, of course. The need seems to be infinitely elastic, as you know, and you also know the causes that are involved very well. In discussions with councillors, we've been encouraged to extend our efforts, and we're looking at ways at doing that. Council's made progress through the Social Wellbeing Forum, getting the various players in our sectors to combine resources, but we all need to still try harder. We've got 2 requests for your consideration this morning that will help extend our reach into our community. In 2025, our PNCC funding decreased from $80,000 to its present level. We'd always been most appreciative of any increase, of course. Also, we're moving forward with Te Whare Oranga, an integrated social service hub. I won't repeat the material that you already have, but we believe that this community-led initiative, delivered in collaboration with other organisations, will make a clear difference. This initiative, supported by Council, aims to be a multiplier of the services that we all deliver. We value Council's participation so far, and we ask that you continue to help us engage the community and also our fellow providers to move the vision forward and make real gains in our community. As we've stressed, this is a community-owned initiative. It can't be delivered without your support and your financial assistance. As you know, funding for organisations such as ours is thin, and we don't have much headroom. This model can deliver real benefits into our community. We don't expect Council to do it all, but your leadership and your support is needed so that we can move forward together. Thank you for your time, and we'll answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, John. Apologies I didn't introduce you. I didn't have you on my run. We have a few questions. Mayor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, John. Thank you, Colleen. So I'll focus on what was just up there before. So this new hub, is it replacing Luck, or is it sort of a new name?
No, it's not replacing Luck, but Luck may be part of that. So we're developing Luck at the moment with a view that ultimately the hub will incorporate it. So the hub should be available to anyone. The drop-in centre will still be around, whether it's part of the hub or not. And my vision is to have a social enterprise as well to improve the funding.
So are you asking for that extra 200,000 on top of what we already do for you and access to a CBD or assistance to a CBD
well,
building?
It was and or that our board at MASH has committed to this. So it's not a MASH service per se, it's a community development service. And it's really important because of the people that we see, but we know that there are other people that aren't accessing any services. Yep. So our board is really committed to finding some solutions to those issues.
Yeah, well, I just came off a call with other mayors around homelessness, so this is actually quite topical. So like other city, my last question, like other city missions or CBD sort of food entities, and you spoke about joint venture and other entities, are the other government agencies and entities coming to the table? Have you had any, are you just starting those conversations, or have you had any success?
No, we've had lots of conversations, so everybody's very keen,
right.
But nobody wants to make the first move and nobody
right.
wants to coordinate it, which is why the MASH board has stepped forward to do that.
Well, I think you're the right people, but it's just...
The other thing is that we've engaged the people who use Luck, for instance, as an opportunity to find out what they want and what they need. And the things that they talk about is easier access to support, telling their story once, and not being handed off to somebody.
The multiple government agencies.
Multiple agencies,
okay.
That's right.
Thanks for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
We have a question from Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, John and Colleen. Just in terms of Luck, who is funding that apart from the grant that you get from City Council?
It's mostly by donations.
Right.
And we have, our team works hard to actually source funding, but also other things such as equipment or food, those sorts of things.
Okay. So the reduction in your grant from 80,000 to 55,000, how did that impact your service delivery there?
Significantly, so that's why the MASH board is paying an extra 12,000 from its coffers, from its other services to cross-subsidise there.
Okay, and in terms of the need for Luck, is that stable? Is it increasing, decreasing?
It's increasing dramatically. So we had a 31% increase just in the first couple of months of the year in terms of people with food insecurity and wanting food. People queue up, and it's really first in, first served.
So an increase of 31% in terms of the number of people?
Food insecurity. People wanting food.
People needing food. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Just the funding question, of course, we do have some funding at the moment for housing insecurity and homelessness. That's likely to come to an end, but that's from MSD, so central government.
Okay, that's all I know. We have one more from Councillor Harpiter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello. Just one question about the providing food. Does that, I mean, we have got another provider that does this with Just Silch, so
yes.
Do you know the volume of food that goes out from your provider and what they do as well?
We have a close relationship. In fact, they often drop us off food. So it depends, and we have this amazing chef who can make anything out of anything and stretch it.
Yeah.
So so we have a close relationship, really.
And also with some schools that have leftover food as well, do you tap into that?
We have been offered that. There are all sorts of issues in terms of being able to have the food safety issues.
Yeah, understand that. Just wondering if you're aware of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes all the questions. Thank you very much for coming in today, for your time and your submission, which will be taken into consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, councillors, that concludes session number 5. We now break for lunch, and we will see you all back here at 1:35. Thanks very much.
Yep, so, sorry, 1:45 people. All right, thank you.